Catherine. How are you doing today?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for having me for to talk about the film. And today we're going to be talking about your documentary, Larry, They, Them. Starting off the bat, Catherine, what inspired you to bring this film to fruition? I know that in it throughout the film we do see, at least myself, that it was like around COVID where you started covering, and but what inspired you to follow Lawrence and their career?
hmm Well, I've known Laurence for about 10 years. I hired them a few times as a photographer. They were part of the artist circle I was filming in my first film, Sisters, Dream and Variations. And we actually see them in the film, like they are part of a photo shoot, and their photo ended up being the poster of the film. So we had collaborated together before, and I knew them, but I didn't know about their transition, and I just kept following them on social media. And at one point on Instagram, they started posting photo reels about like 10 photos a reel, and every photo had like a footnote, very simple, like having breakfast in bed or prepping my for my tea shot, those kind of things. So um, that's when I found out about their hormonal replacement therapy, and I thought it was very interesting, very powerful, visually striking, and already cinematographic. And knowing that Laurence is a very articulate person, thought they were going to be like a great subject for a movie. So I contacted them. It was February 2020, and they were in Mexico traveling with their partner and their friends. And when they came back, we had like a Zoom call, but COVID had just started, and we had to delay the production, the start until the summer. But Laurence was, making their self-portraiture every single day, and their project was going to happen whether I was going to document it or not. So I was really grateful that in the end they accepted that I went to their place. I was by myself at first, just me, my camera, my microphones, and but then we got like the development money and production money, so we had a crew and kept following their journey.
One of the things that I noticed throughout the documentary is that they're probably it's just me not understanding that much the space because I only film myself with a camera and that's it. But there are shots that I feel that Lawrence is handling a camera by themselves. Did that happen throughout the process, or was it all the time you with them throughout a period of time?
Well, Laurence never filmed for the movie, but they were always like using their camera to photograph themselves. And of course, we inspired ourselves from their framing and the look of their photos and the tableaus. So, but we also wanted the film to have a different look. So Laurence shows themselves as very vulnerable and authentic in in the film, and I think one of the reason is that they are comfortable being in front of a camera. So they kind of forget about it. Like for them, it's not a device that's intimidating, like they're used to it in their everyday life. Um, and we included a lot of their photos in the film. So it becomes this kind of dialogue between the observational cinema and then their work, and how as a filmmaker, like I bring a different perspective on their work, but also their identity, like their person. So they were documenting their story already, and they were doing it really well. So I really bring this other perspective and open it up to their close circles of friends and parents, and yeah.
And how long did it take to document? How long did it take for you to feel comfortable to be like, okay, I have enough footage like that I can make the documentary?
hmm Well, I think the production span over 2 years and a half, and it's really hard to film one person all day because they become self-aware, right? At
Hmm.
one point, so we film like short half days, probably 4 or 5 hours at a time, which allowed us to have like a wide spectrum of footage and different short scenes, and to really see like an evolution for Laurence from the beginning to end. But then, like at one point, they booked a couple of because they were working on their book. So at first, that was the trajectory, but then they booked a couple of gallery openings and exhibitions. So this became like the bigger arc, like narrative arc. But then within like that, like we played with different scenes because it's not necessarily like we're not following every step of the way. Like there were also things happening in Quebec about like there was a bill that almost passed and it was very transphobic. And there was like in the Le Petit Robert, they accepted the they them pronoun in French, yel. So there were like some newsreels that were also like very relevant to bring context to Laurence's story. So we included those, and then at one point, yeah, like you kind of if you film with purpose and intention, then you
Hmm.
kind of see the where it's gonna unfold and and we ended the production not long after the exhibition.
Did you have any challenges throughout the production?
Um, well, COVID was the most one. um, Also, filming with the parents took a long time. Like the first scene with the mom happened really early on in the production, but then the follow-up scenes, like we have two other times we filmed with the parents, and that took a very long time, partly because of COVID. Um,
Okay.
so that was challenging, and I think we finished filming the last scene. It was we were already editing, we were already in post production, so the production was officially over, but then we were able to film some more, so that was great. I think the challenge was always to like scheduling people, coordinating people, because they were not always like things happening and settled. It was more like, oh, I want to film you with your friend, or I want to film you, having like dinner with your partner, those kind of things. So it was more like kind of coordinating people that was challenging sometimes.
And being the fact that Lawrence, my bad, had their perspective of art, did Lawrence in any way, you did mention that it influenced how you like put the camera and how you made certain shots, but was Lawrence like with you while like probably in the editing process?
No, they were not. But from the beginning, we had like really open and transparent conversations about the process, about the film, about how I wanted to portray them. And, I was always like open to their input. For instance, like every time I was filming, I was asking Laurence to make a self-portrait, which they would make anyway during their day. So when I was filming, they were deciding about what they were gonna photograph. So I had like, no control about those things, and I would just like let them kind of jazz it,
Hmm.
and and just decide what they felt comfortable about doing. Um, I suggested also filming some scenes. Sometimes they suggested different things. For instance, at one point, like I wanted to film the Pride uh, parade in Montreal, and Laurent said like, "Oh, I'm more into like grassroots trans march, like that's more my community," and so we ended up filming that instead. Uh, so yeah, like it was always like a dialogue, and if like I was asking like, oh, what are you doing with your partner? Or, like I would just ask if they would have something to suggest, and then oh well, we're supposed to dye my mustache, and then we're gonna do this or that. So I would kind of get on board with. I mean, it's documentary is real life, right? So
Mm-hmm. No,
I
yeah.
was I was trying to like get a perspective for the film, but at the same time just follow what they were doing as a person in their daily life.
You did mention that one of the purposes of the documentary was due to promote the book that they were writing. But throughout the film, in the documentary, we see the book launch and as well a couple of art galleries that Lawrence got to put her their work around.
Mm-hmm.
How did you feel that you had like a goal, where the goal is to reach the launch of the book, but then you got to film, I imagine, a little bit much more because you got to do the art galleries as well. How did that feel you
Mm-hmm.
as a filmmaker that you got to show more out of um their life and their experience?
Well, I thought it was very interesting, and actually, like I kind of scripted it that way from the like really early on, kind of more of a four-act movie as opposed to like a climactic three-act movie. Knowing that like the publishing of the book and the exhibition were going to be like a big milestone in their artwork and their like as a photographer. But at the same time, I wanted to see the effect of that. So it was not like the uh, end all be all, goal of the film. So it was more like part of their trajectory. And in the end, like I think we see with the parents, like the book is very revealing to them, about their child, and also just like the all of Laurence's work in the world, like being displayed and shared, like brings, uh, some, well, the achievement, but also it can be targeting and bring some fear. So there's some concern at one point. And so I thought, those elements were really interesting to show as well.
The one of the things that I wanted to ask you is that you did mention it was kind of difficult to have their parents, Lawrence's parents on camera. Was it difficult due to, you did mention COVID, but was it difficult as well? Because I know that there is a portion of the documentary that does explain how French, how they have like their beliefs. And was that a little bit challenging, like for their parents in this case to talk so openly of
Mhm.
Lawrence's transition?
Well, I think it was hard for them to talk about it because it was so fresh and still very emotional. And as the mother says, like it was like a mourning process for her. So at first it's like the surprise, then you're shocked, then um, so you have to like slowly understand. And so there was that. Like it was like the first scene I filmed with her was very spontaneous, and they became like they started talking about those really intimate moments and tension that happen, following the Laurence transition. Um, so I think there was that part. Then the COVID part was was another one that we had no control over. Um, but in the end, like at the screening in Montreal, the mother was there and she participated to the Q&A with us. And she mentioned like how much the film helped her connect with Laurence and understand better. So for me, it was like the best, quality or the best compliment uh, she could have given me, about the film is like the impact it has on their family, and I think they have a much better relationship now.
No, that's amazing. I bring up the question because, in this case, nowadays, even though we're in 2025, even though it is mostly very, very, everybody's used to, having people that are trans out there or queer, but there's still, a group of people or a group of families that, still like to maintain their way of living or their I had the word on my head and I totally forgot how to say it. But I think that you understand what I'm trying to say. But
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to ask you, this is so this more my question now would be mostly because I want to know your opinion. Um, Larry They Them is going to be was presented in Slam Dance. You just mentioned that it was on a screening in Montreal. Being the fact that we have the president that we have, has it been difficult for yourself and for Lawrence? I wish that they were here, like that they can give me their opinion due to the fact that we were living we were living in a way with certain laws, but now things are changing sporadically, and it's not only been a month. Can you give me your opinion on how do you feel in regards to that, and how has how are the audience accepting or reacting to the screenings of Larry, they
Mm-hmm.
them?
Well, I think nobody expected, all of those sudden changes. Even though, like, I think trans rights are really fragile and, put in danger and jeopardized in, many places in the world. As you said, like, the past few weeks, like, it's been just like drastic what happened. And I think it's also like to the core of just like um, uh, validating who the trans people and non-binary people, because now they say it's binary, like you're either like a woman or a man, but you cannot be non-binary. So there are like different issues that are rising up. I think it can be very scary, um, and like showing there are two sides of like visibility. So
Mm-hmm.
there is like what I want to do with the film is humanizing the subjects and people and just show who they are and that they are, you know, people and they have rights like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
The other side of visibility is can be like transphobia, targeting, and of course, like what people don't know makes them like they have fear, like they what's foreign, like what they don't know. So I think they're playing on the fear of people, and I know that Laurence doesn't want to fall into that, but trying to play it safe, of course. Since uh, the new government, like we showed it only in one festival, and it was a queer festival, so it was really like warm and welcoming. But I feel that since like the past few weeks, like festivals and audiences are really I think like see how important the film can be just because of the political context and the timing and how it should be used, just as a positive uh, piece that shows like uh, how we can just support one another and care for one another. Um, so hopefully the film will have an impact socially, culturally, politically, just because of its subject. And Laurence is so such like an appealing subject and so articulate. So I think even though the film is not made to educate others, like I think it still helps understanding a lot of transgender and non-binary identities and realities and the diversity of it.
No, no. The reason why I asked is because myself, I'm still learning. I'm probably 34, but I'm still learning all these how to speak to non-binary people. Sometimes I just normally just ask what their pronouns are, but one still gets used to. And I think that Larry, this documentary, will show people like, hey, this is how you speak to me. Or if you are on this journey, you can see that how vulnerable Lawrence is in this film. There is one scene that I stood with no words because I couldn't believe how strong Lawrence is. There's one scene that their partner goes ahead and tells them like, hey, I'm afraid of the event because in a past event these group of people started harassing everybody on this queer event. Are
The
you
Proud Boys.
afraid?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Proud Boys. And when Lawrence said, no, I'm not. This is an RSVP event. They can't, unless they RSVP, they can't come in. But I imagine that in their mind, they were like, they can still do it, but that's not going to bother me. So it was so powerful and so empowering
Mhm.
as well. So I think that, yes, I think that this film, when it reaches to more people, I think it's going to be a film that will show people a different perspective. It will show them that, like you mentioned, everybody has rights, no matter what it is. And now, Catherine, what is a moment that you have throughout all of this production that you always go back as a memory?
Hmm. Wow, interesting question. Um, hmm. I mean, I think the very first day of shoot, probably, uh, is, I mean, it's the opening of the film, and it's not it was a new camera. It was the first day, and we were just getting to know each other, and I was asking very intimate questions to Laurence, and I think that really sets up all of the like the relationship that unfolded and evolved afterwards. But just the raw honesty between the two of us, and open dialogue, and I think Laurence is, oh, they oh they cannot make it. I'm sorry,
It's fine, no
but
worries.
I'll keep going. So they were really yeah, open and honest. And for me, like I was asking very intimate questions that were not necessarily gonna make it into the film, but I had to know the answers just to understand who Laurence is and what they were going through and what their trajectory was gonna be. Um, so yeah, I think that very first day is something that I was very powerful, and I didn't get afterwards, because once you told your story for the first time, even though you repeat it, it's never as fresh, it's never as authentic, it's never as vulnerable, because you've said it already. And this one was like the very first time they were opening up to me, opening up to the camera. So it's like those are moments that are just, they never come back, and they are really powerful.
And wanted to ask Catherine, what would be, now you are promoting Larry they them. That's what you are working on now. But what would be something that you would like to work in the future?
Well, I have another project that I'm just starting to develop. It's a documentary, but it's an animated documentary.
Okay.
Um, it's with my grandmother, and it has some connection with the Me Too movement and the women's rights. So it's going to be a bit different. but maybe more personal in some ways. And I also have another film that's about like the creative process, but has like more subjects, not just one artist, but different people, and how art can be uh, like just helping go through like very hard moments. So I cannot like say too many details
No
because it's not
worries.
confirmed, but I'll it would probably be some like a third film that would be in line with my first and second, like in the same subject, I think. So,
Okay. And if you could describe uh Larry with one word, what would it be?
mm, I think I mean I have both. I have two words.
No worries, no worries. Everybody that I ask this question, they always tell me, "Can I break the rules?"
Well, on one side, I was like, creative. Like they are so creative and so, good at their craft and just colorful. But on the other hand, as you mentioned, they are really strong. And it's interesting, like the balance of the two, right? Because like they
Hmm.
show themselves so vulnerable in their photo, but at the same time, like they are always like fighting their fears, um, and they have like a slow pace, and they don't like they are not like the activist that's gonna go in the street and just like rage out, but
Yeah,
the work they do has like a very important and powerful impact, I think. And so like the combinations of the two is really what makes their work so powerful.
I completely agree, 100%. And Catherine, I want to thank you so much for giving us the time to talk about Larry They Them. Um, I will be super ecstatic to see you again here when you get your next upcoming projects done. And I hope everybody learned things that I learned on this film and they enjoyed it as much as I did as well.
Thank you so much. And I just want to say, because you mentioned that earlier, like that
Hmm.
you're like starting to learn and, being like being careful with the pronouns. And I think it's great. And also, like, I think, like Laurence often says, like, if it comes from, a deeper respect, even if you make a mistake in the pronouns, like, it can happen, right? But as long as it's not like in a hateful way, or it's not, to diminish someone or to be disrespectful. And I think that's really the most important thing. But what you're doing is great. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and thank you for it.
No, thank you very much for the time and for those words. And I would have loved to have a Laurence here to get their
I'm so
insight as
sorry on
well.
their behalf. Like we had 70 centimeters of snow in the past 4 days.
Oh, okay.
So right now it's like super chaotic in Montreal, and it's like it looks like the moon outside, and I think they're just stuck right now. And they cannot like they were doing some errands, and it's just really hard. So they apologize and wish they could be here, but they
No
have been
worries.
delayed. So I'm so sorry about that.
No worries, but send them a message from my part, and from Reeling Films that the movie is amazing. What they're
Thank you.
doing is amazing, and to keep it up. And I hope that one day we can, in a random moment, we can find each other and
Yeah.
talk for a while. Thank you very much for the time.